New York. And I'm very excited to be doing this workshop with all of you. So this is my formal data and analysis and writing insights workshop. So the agenda for this hour is that I kind of just did a list step by step. I'm going to give a little introduction about me and my background in this career, what data and analysis is, all of these essential digital marketing terms that I think every marketer should know. And whether you're a traditional, direct, or digital marketer, I feel like in this age, these main digital marketing definitions will really be beneficial just for a holistic understanding of how to approach data analytics. And then next, navigating analytical tools such as Sprout Social and Facebook Ads Manager, which are the two main softwares that I use in my job. And these two are really important in terms of how to track metrics and KPIs, which I'll get into later. And then I will show you a reporting tutorial. So that's the workshop element of it, and how to craft insights, writing, drafting, crafting insights based on those metrics. I will show you a sample report that I create in my day-to-day job. And then I kind of want to get into how you can get a job in this realm of marketing after college or grad school. As I know, a lot of you guys are either MSMI or MBA students. I know that definitely the job hunt is a tricky one, but I do have some tips and tricks in order to get there. And the power of networking and persistency and how that's really crucial in getting a job. And finally, in the last 10 minutes, a Q&A. So let's get started. This is my intro. I'm a data analyst or a digital marketing analyst at a firm called Hunter PR based in New York City. And a fun fact is I work in the World Trade Center. Even though it's a really small agency and it's not very well known, it's still in a huge, huge building. So it's just a little fun fact. I love going to work. Not a lot of people can say they go to the World Trade Center for work. So I'm very honored to even be able to do that. I have kind of a diverse experience and I have a lot of exposure to people of all walks of life, cultures, backgrounds, and careers, having lived in Asia, in Hong Kong, Singapore, and then Northern California, and now New York City. So I have a kind of wide exposure to a lot of different types of, working styles, people from all walks of life, as I said, and it's been a pleasure to live in all these cities. I've attended the University of San Francisco School of Management, and I did that from 2017 to 2021 for my bachelor's degree. And I earned my degree in marketing with a kind of a broader business admin kind of major. So, but yes, focused on marketing essentially. And I do have a niche in digital marketing. Not traditional marketing. So everything I'm going to be teaching you all today and that hopefully you can take away from this session is that the power of digital marketing and how it can really benefit you in your chosen career path. Fun fact, I'm 22 years old, so probably a little bit younger than some of you because I know you guys are in grad school, but I do turn 23 in a month, so I'm excited about that. And some of my future ambitions is to pursue an MBA like a lot of you as a catalyst for all things business and potentially having a kind of subsidiary niche in fashion or luxury fashion marketing. That would be a dream of mine. So what is data analytics? What exactly is it? Well, as most of us are millennials or Gen Zers, we do live in a digital world and we are in a digital generation. We're constantly, especially because of the pandemic, it's kind of heightened the need for the use of digital and online, resources, computers, email, Zoom. We're always on our devices. So data analytics is basically the process of systemically applying statistics and or logical techniques, usually involving math, to describe and illustrate, condense and recap, and evaluate data. Collect and keep performance indicators, otherwise known as KPIs or metrics, either or, they're the same thing, are kind of measuring indicators to provide your company reports on their performance over social media or general performance reports on other platforms that they are kind of doing outreach on or advertising their campaigns on. So a typical day in my life consists of making reports, and I make social media metric reports essentially. And I'm going to teach you all how we're going to navigate those two platforms that I had discussed earlier, Sprout Social and Facebook Ads Manager, in the coming slides. So this is a little bit of the boring slide, but it is crucial and it is very important in order to get to the next step of actually navigating the platforms. So the softwares and the interfaces require you to know what these kinds of KPIs are. So I've made a little digital marketing glossary, which is kind of like, index of where you can find your main digital marketing terms, the definitions you'll need to know for your knowledge as a marketer. So I'm going to go through each one of them in a little bit of detail so we can kind of understand how to approach these softwares. So on social, we have things called engagements, and I'm sure you guys are all familiar with what a like is, what a comment is, what a share is, reactions on Facebook, story opens on Instagram, that kind of stuff. So those engagements are how consumers interact directly with your brand through different actions such as clicks, likes, comments, shares, reactions, and media opens. Now, impressions are a different metric, and impressions and reach are two separate things, but I'm going to tell you what the difference is, but first what the definition of both are. So impressions is the number of times your content appears in someone's timeline. So the impressions are usually higher than reach because these social channels such as Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, they can serve content to a user multiple times, or a user might repeatedly return to a piece of content they find engaging, and that'll count as an impression. So the number of times your content is viewed will always be higher than your reach. And your reach is how many unique individuals see your content. So to slow down a little bit, the impressions are the kind of the total aggregate number of people seeing your content on your timeline. And the reach is how many times it's seen, but it can be by the same person. So for example, if some individual saw an Instagram post 100 times, that would count as 100 impressions. However, that would only count as one reach because that one person, whether they saw it 100 times or not, it only counts as the unique individual. So what I'm trying to say is that impressions will always be higher than reach. And generally, we don't look at reach too much in data analysis, but we do look at impressions because it depends on your measuring metric, but we want to measure how successful your brand is performing on social. And impressions is the larger number, so we tend to go for that. Engagement rate is also another measurement KPI. It's the total engagements divided by the total impressions multiplied by 100. So this is the formula that is used to calculate ER, and that's generally done already through the software, so you don't really need to know that, but I thought I would just include it so we have a better understanding of what engagement rate is. And engagement rate is how quick your consumer is interacting with your content. So if you post something at 5:30 p.m. and it gets 100 likes in 5 minutes, whereas the next month you post something at the same time, 5:30 p.m. However, it takes 15 minutes for them to get 100 likes. It's a slower engagement rate. So engagement rate is another metric, that some some brands might need to use in order to measure success. Now, it varies brand to brand. Sometimes engagements are the key KPI, sometimes impressions are the key KPI, sometimes reaches, but sometimes engagement rate is. So it all depends on, what your internal team is looking for at your agency when you work, and what your company kind of benchmarks are. And that should be established with your boss or any of your internal teams. Whoever is your supervisor, they will generally tell you what the brand is looking for in terms of their measurement KPIs. So we've gone through the key kind of metrics that I look at: engagements, impressions, and engagement rate. As for paid metrics, we go by cost per. So cost per click, cost per 1,000 impressions, and cost per engagement: CPC, CPM, and CPE. Cost per click is, just as the English language shows, is the cost per a click. So the total ad spend divided by the number of clicks. This determines the cost of showing users an ad on social media. And then cost per 1,000 impressions is also called cost per mil. And it's the total ad spend, that you've spent on your ad or campaign divided by total impressions multiplied by 1,000. This also determines the ad's cost effectiveness, specifically for reach and awareness campaigns. The lower the ad CPM is, the less the ad costs, and the better the ROI, or the return on investment, is. So you generally want lower cost per click, and you want a lower cost per 1,000 impressions. And you also want a lower cost per engagement, because then your agency or company is not spending as much on these campaigns. So CPE, to move on, is the total ad spend divided by total engagements. This measures the success of an engagement campaign and determines the cost of each like, comment, or share. So in general, we want the engagements, impressions, reach, and engagement rate to be high, because that, is a good turnout on social. If you're getting a lot of engagements, you're getting a lot of impressions on your brands, and you're getting a lot of reach and engagement rate, that is, a indicator of success, because your brand is performing very dynamically on social. However, on the internal side, you would be wanting to spend less on these campaigns, but getting those higher numbers in terms of engagements, impressions, and engagement rate. You would be wanting to spend less on the ad, not spending more. So I kind of divided it into the first half of the page being KPIs that you would want more of a higher success rate on, as in higher numbers, and the lower half of the page being the cost and the cost effectiveness of it. So how inexpensive your agency can kind of, spend on these campaigns. So I know we have questions at 10 at the 10-minute mark at the end of the presentation, but do we have any questions right now in terms of these definitions? Okay, I'll move on. Okay, so now is the workshop part. I'm going to do a brief rundown of the interfaces that I use: Sprout Social and Facebook Ads Manager. So we're going to start with Sprout Social. I'm going to actually screen share this. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it. You're good.
Okay, perfect. So what I do is, this is the interface that I use, and Sprout Social is not available unless your agency pays for it. So this is kind of an exclusive tutorial of Sprout Social. And on the left hand, I'm going to start with kind of how you navigate the interface. So when you log on to Sprout Social, which you might need to use in your agency, although Facebook Ads Manager is probably the main one you might need to use, I'll give you a tutorial on both. But basically, Sprout Social has a number of brands you can input. So this is my company, and I'm kind of showing some information that is company information, but it's approved. So you have a number of brands over here, right? And I'm going to go with Tabasco. Okay. So Tabasco is the brand we're going to be analyzing on our reporting today. On the left-hand side navigation tool, we're going to go on reports with the three column bars. And we're going to click on that. It's going to lead us to the reporting home. So it's a little bit daunting to first look at because there's so much here and I wouldn't know where to start. I'm going to skip over custom reports, but we're going to go to cross network and we're going to start with profile performance. So if I go to profiles here you can see how our brand Tabasco is performing over, the last month. So I put the time frame as March 1st to March 31st, and I've set it to March 1st to March 31st. So we're seeing all the data from last month over Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook for Tabasco. Over here, you can see the cross-channel performance in terms of their audience, their net follower growth, the published posts, the number of published posts, impressions. And the neat thing about this platform is they actually put the definitions right when you hover over the words. You also get engagements, engagement rate per impression, video views. And if you want to add more metrics, you can kind of click on this window over here and you get to actually play around and see, okay, do I want audience gained, audience lost? What am I looking for? What are the metrics you're kind of measuring by? Do I want to know how many shares there are? How many comments are these things? Am I looking at these things specifically? So depending on what you want in terms of your KPI, you can kind of filter and adjust and look at which KPIs you're trying to measure. So that's a profile performance. I'm going to go by a profile by network. So I'm going to just look at the Facebook pages for Tabasco in March. So over here, I see that, okay, over the span of last month, our kind of Facebook page did not perform as well. I'm only seeing an increase in impressions over this, this green arrow kind of indicates that there was a 43% increase in impressions. However, there was, low engagement, almost like more than 50%. There was a 62% decrease in engagements. And then lower posts, that might be a reason as to why, that might be part of the analysis. It's like, why did we not perform as well on engagements? Because for Tabasco, we report on two measuring KPIs, engagement rate and impressions. So even though impressions did well, which is really good, we're wondering, why did engagements decrease from last month? What about our marketing strategy didn't really work? So that's something I would look into for the analysis part of my report. As for Instagram, here, same thing, impressions. Okay, we see there was follower growth. That might be an important factor to the Tabasco brand. There was an 8% follower growth. It grew from 77K to almost, 700 more followers. So that's a little bit significant, but because Tabasco is such a big brand, it might be minor in the scale of the company. For Twitter profiles, we handle the global account and the UK account and the US account. So we can see, okay, Tabasco Twitter did really well. Maybe we should be utilizing Twitter more instead of Facebook and Instagram because it's obviously getting a lot of impressions, engagements, higher engagement rate, more published posts. So, every channel kind of differs from style for, from channel to channel. We use humor in our Tabasco tweets. We use tweet replies, retweets. The content or community manager within an agency will be dictating all of the content and how they kind of put it out. Whereas I just handle how the performance goes on all of these channels. And then for Pinterest, we don't get much data on this platform for Pinterest. So I kind of look at Pinterest Ads Manager, which is a separate website, but I don't think we'll have enough time today to go over that. But I'm kind of just showing you Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and some of the main channels we do to analyze the data and metrics. So over here, you can see more of a visual. You can see the audience growth through organic page likes, paid page likes. You can see the publishing behavior, top posts. You know, we do reports where we're looking at top posts, so you can filter out. I want to know top posts by engagements. So in the month of March, this which flavor you got going all the way was our top post with 2K engagements. And then a St. Patrick's Day post was our second top post. Third one was kind of a humorous tweet. If your BFF doesn't see this post in 1 hour, they owe you lunch. So these are kind of things that the community manager looks for, and they kind of dictate the type of content that's pulled out on social. So with all this data, engagement, video performance, you can even look at demographics where, you know, the age, the gender, top cities, top countries, whatever data your client needs will be available on these kind of analytical softwares. So then what I do is I create a custom report. Now, this is kind of just a very simple way of putting all the data you need in one space. This isn't the actual report, but it's kind of accumulating all the data into one area so it's neatly put out. There is a widget on this app that shows the paid versus organic network overview. So you can see the amount of organic engagements, how much of social was coming from paid, how much of the engagements were coming from paid and organic. So it's really helpful to visually kind of see this data and just really analyze, like, okay, so a lot of the engagements were maybe happening because of, you know, paid efforts on Facebook. Same with Instagram. Same with, you know, so you see that, you know, generally paid is going to be a lot more successful than organic. Generally, when you put in paid, you know, sponsored ads, sponsored posts, sponsored campaigns, when you put more paid behind an ad, generally that does better for the brand, but it depends on the agency's budget and how much they're willing to spend on these ads and campaigns. So it's really great. You can kind of filter out, like, for example, you can filter out Instagram for business, you can filter out the profiles, you can connect profiles. It kind of just shows you everything. And then to go on to the next, sorry, 1 second. To go on to the next analyticals platform, we're going to go to Facebook Ads Manager. So I'm just going to pull that up really quickly. So Facebook Ads Manager is also a analytical platform. It's an interface where it's usually presented by Meta, and that includes Instagram and Facebook. So over here, we can see that this is the Ads Manager set that I use. So if I go to all tools, I'm just showing kind of the Ads Manager aspect. This is where I live in most of the time for my work. You can see that it's kind of a similar interface to Sprout Social, because you have a budget, you have the results, you have the reach, impressions, cost per result, amount spent. You can even add, you know, you can customize the columns. You can put, for example, engagement, frequency, CPC, clicks, CTR, like any of these engagement metrics, paid metrics, you have all of it over here. So it just shows you how, you know, how much you can kind of really play around with the platform and filter out accordingly to what metrics you're looking at. And you can apply them and they pop up over here. So I can see that for my March Instagram engagement, I can see that this was this cost per click. And I can see that this was a 21% click-through rate. And the total spent from all these campaigns, you can filter out just March content. So let me do that. So Instagram, March 2022, and plus IG stories. So over here, we can see that the total amount spent on Instagram for this month was, in the month of March, for this brand was $3,719. And then accordingly, you can see the cost per result, the number of impressions, the reach, and notice how the impressions are always higher than the reach. As I had stated before, impressions will always be higher than reach. So we generally look at impressions more than reach. I would say, yeah, you can completely analyze things on this platform. If if Sprout Social isn't giving enough information, I come to Facebook Ads Manager because it has more of the complex details that Sprout Social might have missed. So this is kind of a little bit about the two platforms. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. So that's a little bit about how you navigate those two platforms. I know it was a lot to take in, but you really need to just play around with both of the tools. And it's all about the KPIs and all of the information that I extract on my reports are number KPIs. So I will show you a report that I've done for one brand that I work on, and you can see it visually put into play. So here's the reporting and measurement segment of the presentation. I'm going to go through all the KPIs. Remember, KPIs are key performance indicators, paid versus organic KPIs, and all the metrics that are involved with the analysis portion of reporting. So after getting all that numerical data, you need to determine the background of your brand and add context to it by using the brand's language and cater analysis to the brand's target audiences. And this is really important when you're drafting and crafting insights. Writing insights when I first came into Hunter was really difficult because I didn't know how to craft insights. And I was like, how do I write insights? How do I make an analysis that will better the performance of these brands on social? So it's important to understand target audiences. And I'm sure you all have learned about target audiences and how companies kind of target and retarget their information to other sources. Remarketing is a really big thing, especially for brands like Amazon. Things that are remarketed towards you are based on your search history. And yeah, so this is really pivotal in understanding your brand, knowing your brand audience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a sample report on a brand I use called Miss Teas, which is it's a pierogies brand. So Miss Teas Pierogies is one of the brands that I work on food and beverage. And this was their February 2022 monthly report that I worked on for their social media analytics. So first you put a summary page in terms of, the client would want like a condensed summary on how you drove performance that month. So we see over here that overall the campaign structure implemented delivers improved performance as February saw increased efficiency and positive MOM growth across important KPIs. So some of this language is a little bit hard to understand because MOM or like MOM growth is kind of part of one of our target audiences. So we have two target audiences with Miss Teas, the fun-loving mom boss and the brand loyal consumer. So a lot of our social content is either targeted to one of the two audiences. Now our fun-loving mom boss is the kind of target audience where exactly what it says, it's the mom who wants to provide their kids with a snack of Miss Teas after they come home from school. And the brand loyal consumer is just a consumer who is basically obsessed with the brand loyal, will keep up with anything that the brand does. So we have those kind of two segments that we look at, and we try to target all of our social campaigns to these two growth factors. So what I do is I do something called cross-channel by the numbers on a table. I screenshot the cross-channel metrics across all social for Miss Teas Pierogies. So on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest, we can see that over the month of February, it did really well. There was a positive follower growth, positive net audience growth. We see that there was a almost 60% increase in impressions from last month. So from January, it increased from 9 million impressions to 14 million impressions. So that's significant. We can see that engagement's really increased. And despite less published posts, even though engagement rate per impression didn't do so well, we got a lot of video views on the recipe videos for Facebook on Miss Teas. And then I put in paid metrics because these are KPIs we're measuring now. So CPM, CPC, CPE. For Twitter, the same thing, CPM, CPC, CPE. And Facebook and Instagram are combined together because, as we all know, they're both part of Meta. So they kind of are grouped together. Instagram and Facebook are always generally grouped together on analytical platforms, and Twitter is a separate, interface. So that's the reason for that. Now, these are my Facebook insights. What I do is I go by face value, I go by each channel. So you have Instagram insights here, Twitter insights, Pinterest insights. So I'm going to go over Facebook insights. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to just go over Facebook insights and what I kind of do and how I analyze this data. So first and foremost, I always put the total platform spend. So we can see over here that on Facebook, we spent $1,761 for that month. And the most efficient, measured by CPM, the most efficient top post was our Valentine's Day post. So we did a quirky kind of copy. So the copywriting says, we're in a long distant relationship with our Valentine, Pierogies Alfredo on. And then you would see kind of the joke, and it garnered a lot of reactions. And so that was a positive on social. So our top performing content pillar was definitely recipes and usage videos, or recipe and usage kind of links. Both of these top posts linked back to the Miss Teas website and garnered audiences back to the recipe website. So we found that recipe posts do well on Facebook for at least the month of February. What I do is I then kind of put these metrics down and I analyze these metrics. So for the Valentine's Day post for top performer, I said recipe content tied to food occasions continued to perform on this platform very well. The Pierogies Alfredo post, which undoubtedly benefited from fun copy aligned with Valentine's Day, generated the most efficient reach and engagement with our current consumer, delivering a top cost per thousand impressions of $1.08 per CPM and top CPE of 25 cents. Continuing to leverage content with occasional cues will help us sustain efficient reach and engagement over time. So leveraging content with occasional cues, it was the key kind of takeaway from this paragraph. Clearly, efficient reach and engagement are two of the big KPIs that we see that are important to this brand. And for the second top performer, we could see based on CPC that, an optimized for traffic barbecue chicken pierogi nachos post timed with the Super Bowl kind of garnered a lot of engagements. We can see here 32 comments, 63 shares. For our fun-loving mom boss audience, and had one of the most efficient CPC scores of 13 cents, lower than the channel benchmark for February, as well as one of the top engagement rates, 1.6%. While the ad had the least efficient CPM of $1,007. Increased ad competition surrounding the sporting event of the Super Bowl likely drove cost up for that KPI. So depending on events that are happening on the month or in the month, we see that different factors can influence why your content on social is doing well or why it's not performing as well. So you have to kind of really take in all of the different contributing factors and craft your analysis based on those reasons. So over here we see Instagram. Again, we're measuring it by CPE, all the paid metrics. And these were the 2 top performing posts. Twitter, same thing. Like these were the 2 top performers. And a lot of the times we see on Miss T's, emojis are really beneficial for providing, high engaging content on social, on, Twitter social. So, we're going to implement more emojis in the future for our content. Gaining insights. The post about Florentine pierogies optimized for engagement and targeting our current consumer didn't perform quite as well, which employed a similar graphical style. It's possible that our current consumer or our brand loyal consumer is less engaged with popular formats or found the presentation, which did not include branded packaging like the item above, ultimately a bit vague. So based on different insights, we can craft reasons as to why, as I am reiterating, why social posts perform well and why they may not be performing as well. Again, I put spend, CPE, impressions, and engagements because these were the main benchmarks that we're measuring for Twitter. Finally, Pinterest is a little bit of a trickier platform because we look at Pinterest ads. And here we found that our best pin was the pierogies Florentine. So then we understood, okay, recipes and usage are definitely the way to go for Pinterest. And I've seen across social, recipes and usage is a good way to go about it because, I guess both our audiences are interested in knowing the recipes for these sort of snacks. And this month, they promoted the pierogies Florentine recipe, targeting that fun-loving mom boss in both traffic and awareness campaigns. And then to get kind of nuanced, interestingly, the awareness approach scored only a slightly higher CPC than its traffic counterpart, but had a significantly lower CPM compared to the traffic campaign with the same ad. In addition to being more efficient, the awareness pin also had nearly as many outbound clicks as the optimized for traffic pin and more saves as well. So every social channel is going to have different metrics. And I keep repeating this because depending on what you're measuring, whether it's saves on Pinterest, story views on Instagram, carousal looks at Facebook, whatever it is, you're measuring based on a certain KPI. The takeaway is that for this pin, the awareness pin delivered comparable results to the traffic pin, a kind of 2-for-1 result. If this trend continues, we might explore focusing our media dollars here on awareness objectives for well-rounded and efficient results. So over here, we're saying, okay, we're going to want to spend our budget on media dollars. We're going to want to spend it on awareness objectives. So whether it's, it could be an engagement objective or an awareness objective. And clearly awareness objective is performing better. So we're going to put paid behind it. That's the kind of insight that we would be creating. Next, with our influencer specialists that we have at the agency, they kind of do brand interaction highlights. So a lot of the time we respond as community managers to tweets and we kind of see, okay, so this is getting a lot of reaction. This is getting, a retweet. This is getting a like. People are, that kind of stuff is what influencers are there for. And what they kind of do is they provide content for the brand and we give them direction and then they kind of take it away with creative direction with the brand. And usually influencers give us a lot more exposure and a lot more outreach to audiences that we might not be able to reach just on our own as a brand. Finally, I include a glossary, which I have shown you before, just for the client's knowledge, so they know, okay, what are all of the terms we're talking about, just to give it a more well-rounded kind of approach to the presentation. And finally, I end it with thank you slides. So this is kind of a typical Miss T's presentation. Now, there are a lot of different types of presentations for different brands, but we're going to just stick with that for today as we're almost running out of time. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do for measurement. I also think that it was a mouthful, but I think a lot of the time, grad students or college students, we want to be constantly networking. And I know that, jobs are a big priority after grad school, after college. So I would say in order, to leverage your network, prioritize LinkedIn and all of your resources. Honestly, I think from my personal experience, LinkedIn is my best friend. LinkedIn is your best friend. Turn on open to hire if you're trying to, obviously get hired. Recruiters will reach out to you via your messages. Apply through LinkedIn. Use that easy apply feature. You also try to go on their website and actually apply for jobs. And most of the time, recruiters will get back to you on email or via message. So I really would encourage all of you to really leverage your LinkedIn network when, going about this job search process, either getting an internship or working at a company or a firm or an agency, whatever you decide to do, I would leverage my LinkedIn network. I would say networking, persistency, and resilience got me my job. I would say always stay ambitious. Determine the stepping stones you need to reach along the way. So I knew for me, I wanted to get a digital marketing job at Hunter. I wanted to, or not specifically Hunter, but I wanted to get a digital marketing job. I wanted to work in data analytics. And so I was really kind of keen on getting a digital marketing kind of role. I would say keep your professional profile on LinkedIn fresh. Make sure that you're, keeping a very condensed version and a high level version of yourself on LinkedIn. You always want to make sure you're looking professional. I would say when you're giving interviews, make every interview a fresh one. Just because you're getting rejections, 100 rejections to finally land the perfect job you want is worth it. So make sure you treat every interview like it's your first one. That's my best piece of advice. Recruiters look out for this. When I was feeling kind of disheartened during the pandemic, I wasn't really finding a lot of jobs. The job market was not that great. I kept on being persistent. I kept on being resilient. I kept on networking and finally got the job I wanted. So that's my big piece of advice. My tips and tricks to succeed is to make regular and meaningful progress to boost your productivity. So if you're working on a report, if you're working on analytics, if you're working on, crafting SEO or SEM, or you're trying to promote content on social, be fully engaged with the task in front of you. Make sure that the task in front of you is your main focus. We get so distracted with phones and, digital that sometimes actually putting your 100% focus will really get you the best results in terms of your work in reporting, in putting out your best content on social. Also, staying up to date with trends is helpful in the kind of industry I'm in with social media management. And just making sure, you're not doing anything that's going to be too controversial and will help your work kind of be its best and be at its best performance. Thank you so much. I know I'm a little bit early, but we do have 10 minutes. So I want to give the microphone over to Elizabeth, and I'm ready for any questions that you all may have.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Nikhita. That was so insightful. So let's open it up to questions. You can raise your digital hand if anyone has questions. Oh, look at that. Parth, go for it.
Yes. Hi, Nikhita. So a great, insightful session, I would say. Just one question. So I have worked in paid marketing. have not worked that much in to social media marketing. So one question which I had is that you mentioned about Pinterest advertising. uh, I was curious to know about how is this platform, catering for digital marketing? Do we get relevant leads from this particular platform, and is it good for B2B or is it good for B2C?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Parth. I think so. Pinterest ads is very similar to Facebook Ads Manager in the sense that it handles all the KPIs and it handles all the paid metrics. But in terms of it only handles everything Pinterest. So when you're looking at pins, it's only handling everything that all your campaigns you're putting out on Pinterest. And for certain brands, Pinterest may be worth leveraging because it might really reach an audience that you need. So for example, for Miss Teas, I use Pinterest a lot because for the mom audience that we have, it really kind of caters towards them and it reaches them. So I would say it's good for B2B. And also I would say B2C as well, because you're reaching not only your consumer, but in terms of you're reaching your internal team. So I think B2C and B2B, I would say both. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't go through Pinterest ads, but it's a very similar platform. It just only handles Pinterest.
Got it. So does it have a different manager tool just like Facebook has, or does it have an integrated platform just like YouTube and Google Ads? So they have one particular platform wherein you can run both the ads.
Yeah, it has its own platform. Pinterest ads has
Okay.
its own platform.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions? Oh, Greg asks, what are the most important metrics your brand clients look for?
That's a good one. So I would say engagement. Engagement is the huge metric because you really want to be garnering a lot of reactions and as much activity as possible on social. That's what I do for, most of the brands. Engagement is the big one. I'd say impressions as well, but mainly engagement and engagement rate. What drives engagement is, so this is where the analysis part comes in. What drives engagement is, I would say it depends brand to brand, but depending on your strategy, I'm not part of strategy, but social strategy handles like the type of content that you're putting out. It might be content, it might be the amount of paid that you're putting behind a certain campaign. Like that might drive engagement, because if you're putting more spend on an ad, you're going to get a bigger result. You're going to get a more successful result.
Okay, cool. And then Matthew, go for it.
Hi, thanks again for speaking with us today. It was super awesome to see, kind of like a real behind the scenes of some of these different analytic tools. One question that I have is that you mentioned, how you work with the copy team and how they work on crafting posts. And so I was curious, because then you also mentioned how the user engagement in the comments section, and I'm wondering if you as the individual social team handle that sort of brand voice, or if that's something you have to kind of pair more with the copy team, or if it kind of varies. And if you could speak to maybe the relationship between the copy team and kind of that ongoing conversation that is the comment section.
That's a really great question. So our social team handles it. We have different, designated roles for the social team. So we have a community manager that kind of handles all the copy and the copywriting. So I don't personally handle the copy. I could give suggestions in my analysis and reporting, but it's generally a community manager, and we have about 2 to 3 per team. So for my food and beverage team, I'm the reporter. There would be like 2 community managers that puts out content. And as far as the relationship between copy and like the internal dialogue that happens, it's mainly generally between the community managers. So I would say, perhaps they saw on Twitter that like funny kind of meme style tweets really work. So then we would kind of go with that. And the copy is also kind of influenced by pop culture, by trending things, you know, anything that involves trends. It's important to have that kind of knowledge. We also have like a weekly meeting where we go over trends and we go over like, you know, what we think would be a great way to advertise on social. So whether it's through copy, whether it's through a meme, whether it's through a certain style of tweet or a certain style of post, we kind of go for that. Whatever's also garnering a lot of engagements, like maybe carousals on Facebook are garnering a lot of engagements. So we would kind of put more of those out, and maybe we would put a post link click to the website where they would see all the recipe, the ingredients for the food or beverage snack, you know, that kind of situation. So it's mainly community managers that handle copywriting.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, awesome. Any last minute questions or? Cool, then I guess we're done. Thank you so much, Nikhita. This was awesome. I feel like I learned a lot and this is like right up all of our alleys. Oh, Anshul has a question. Last one, and then we'll let everybody go.
I would just say, like, I don't really have any question, but I just want to say it was a really interesting workshop and great presentation, Nikita. Learned quite a few new concepts here. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much.
All right, awesome. Well, good luck, and thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Big round of applause for you too. Thank you for reaching out to me. Awesome.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.